Now moving over to the Western Conference, number 1 seed OKC Thunder, who I think by the actual percentage, the Detroit Pistons have now taken them over as the best team in the NBA just by wins losses, which is kind of crazy because OKC started off so electric. But obviously, like many other teams across basketball, have dealt with many injuries. Now we have MVP Shea down with something. J-Dub has been down, and I think honestly, off the top of my head, J-Dub has probably had 2 to 3 games where I was watching. It's like that looked like the Dub that was in the postseason last season, or in the finals last year. They gave us 40. He's 17 points per game. The 3-point shooting is at 31%. This has not been a year for him because of that hand thing. He had that one game right before he went down with an injury. Again, 28 points versus the Suns. That's one of the games I'm thinking about. But I think their potential biggest roadblock is going to be the secondary creation. I think it does get looked past because obviously they won the championship last season. And because Shea is so damn dominant, that creating in the half court is actually like really tough for them when it's not Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And if Dub is not going to be able to provide them the type of production that he gave them at bits and pieces of last year's postseason because of his hand, then now this team that was the heavy favorite is no longer looked at the heavy favorite. Chet Holmgren, as good as he is, you don't look at Chet Holmgren to go out there in nights where Dub doesn't have it or Shea doesn't have it to be like, oh, I'll be the guy that give us 25 to 30. That's not his role. That's not his archetype as an offensive player. So sometimes they need, not sometimes, a lot of times they need that secondary creation. And recently they haven't had that because of Dub's injury and because AJ Mitchell, who I think is going to have to play a huge role down the stretch of these last 20 or so games and also in the postseason, because he's one of the few people that can create for himself and for others. And if there's going to be one roadblock, it would be just that they just got nobody outside of Shea. And Shea in himself is a system. I don't know if y'all noticed that the man is shooting 60% from the field on 2-pointers. On 2-pointers. He's a guard. He's not Shaq. He's not Giannis. He's a guard doing it. But their lack of secondary creation could definitely come back to bite them. It actually almost came back to bite them multiple times last year in that series versus the Pacers, in that series versus the Denver Nuggets. And it could happen again. And I think that the teams that they're going to have to go through in order to go raise the Larry O'Brien trophy again are going to be more difficult than last year's team. So they have to be ready for that. The biggest asterisk amongst all of these teams, or most of these teams, is the health, right? The Detroit Pistons are one of the few teams that we're going to talk about today that have not dealt with some type of major injury as like today, like my next team, the Boston Celtics. Their biggest roadblock is their superstar player that let's be real, Tatum is coming back. He gave us the whole hoopla that I'm not sure, man. We got the whole 15-minute documentary on NBC. We got all these pictures of him real life scrimmaging versus the team. That man is coming back. I don't know if it's March 1st, like people are speculating. That man is coming back to hoop. But the biggest roadblock is that he's coming back to hoop. And more likely than not, he just won't be the Tatum that we know, which is fine. The man is coming off an Achilles. I don't expect him to be all-NBA first team. And that could potentially be their biggest roadblock because, I mean, a lot of these teams were nitpicking, right? These are the cream of the crop teams, and all of these teams, depending on the matchup, can win 4 playoff series. The Celtics are one of them weird ones, man, because they rank well offensively. They rank well defensively. They hit their shots. They prevent you from hitting shots. They protect it. Like they just have very little, very little holes in their team, especially now. We were looking on it about it, or numbers on the board about the Vucevic acquisition, and in the limited amount of Vucevic minutes since the trade deadline, his net rating, or the team's net rating with him on the court, is like a +12 and like a -10 when he's off. So even though Vuce is not the prototypical center for what they want to do because of his lack of defensive, protection of the paint, like a Porzingis who also stretched the floor, he's been able to just be impactful in his minutes. So like this team, who me included, I was one of them people that came into the season like, this is a gap year for the Boston Celtics. Hell no, this might not be a gap year. But the fact that Tatum is coming back and might be 70% of himself might be the one thing that's preventing them from winning, where they may need, let's say, a 90% version of Tatum. And it's unrealistic for us to expect him to be at 90%. But everything else is kind of cool, man. Overall, Star Weekend, I got to talk to Jaylen Brown. The man was so damn cool and very honest with all of the questions and answers. And that video will be out for y'all, I think, right before the playoffs. I could be wrong. Right before the playoffs. So he gave us some great answers and stuff. So Celtics, super fun team, as they always have been. And now Tatum is going to be back. It's a win. The next team we have is the San Antonio Spurs. I think their biggest roadblock is going to be the lack of experience. Every other team that we're going to talk about today has had 80%, 90% of their roster being in some type of playoff series before. Well, we look at the San Antonio Spurs, and that's just not the case, right? Harrison Barnes, who's no longer starting, has playoff experience. De'Aaron Fox has been in the playoff series the 1 year versus the Warriors. The Sabonis stomped on his chest year. And I think Keldon Johnson, was Keldon Johnson even around? I don't even know if Keldon Johnson was around. So like all of these guys, most of these guys that are in this true rotation have not had postseason success or experience. Luke Cornett obviously is an NBA champion, so he has that. But a lot of these other dudes have not been in the postseason at all. Bismack Biyombo, I guess, is still in the roster, so he's got some postseason experience. But, you know, of the young teams, it usually just takes time. It takes your nose getting punched in at least one time before you go out there and do it. OKC, another prime example of this. OKC had their jump year. They were in the play-in. They lost in the play-in, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Oh, no, y'all about to make me go back and look through this history. I think they lost in the play-in. Either they lost in the play-in or they lost in that first round after winning the play-in. Either way, they had a little bit of success, but not enough. Yeah, so they lost in the play-in 2022, 2023. The next year, they end up being the 1 seed. They get to the second round where Luka wins that series before he goes on to the conference finals and eventually to the championship. And then the year after that, they win the Larry O'Brien Trophy. It's very rare and almost never will we see a team go from no playoffs at all to NBA championship team. And the few times we have seen it is like, we acquired LeBron James and Chris Bosh, so we're going to make it to the finals in the Eastern Conference. They didn't win that year. They didn't even win that year, right? And they acquired 2 of the best players in the world. So it usually just takes a little bit of cohesion. It takes a little bit of figuring out who we are in the postseason. I'm excited to see what Wemby has to bring there. I ain't got no doubt in my mind he's going to be electric, but like, you know, like Dylan Harper and our guy Stephon Castle, what does a postseason series look like against the best of the best? Where it's different than being there just on a nightly basis, because these teams have a 7-game window in order to truly scheme around you. So how will, you know, the progressed version of Stephon Castle, his half-court stuff has been better than his first year, but still maybe not elite. How does that come to play in a postseason series against a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves? I'm just making it. I don't even know if they would see each other. In the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have been doing a really good job over the last couple of seasons scheming defensively. You think about their series versus the Suns, where they lock Kevin Durant and Devin Booker ass up. How would that young team really fare? And I think the youth is the biggest thing that could come into play. Next, we got the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is very similar. It's not youth because we got James Harden and we got Donovan Mitchell. All of the guys on their roster basically has been in the postseason series before, but maybe I think that their lack of cohesion might be the thing, because they did just acquire James a few weeks ago. And this is kind of a cop-out answer because we really haven't seen much of them just yet. They've been incredible with James Harden so far. The James Harden-Donovan Mitchell pairing is a +12 net rating. And when it is just James Harden and no Donovan Mitchell, is a +6, which you still take 100% of the time. As I record this, they're on a 7-game streak. They do have a game against OKC, but OKC won't have Dub or Shea, so I don't know if that's a good gauge. So I'm kind of giving you like a cop-out answer, because so far in the James Harden era, we haven't really seen many downsides, and it's going to happen, right? No team is perfect, but as of today, that team is rolling. Jared Allen is playing some of his best ball of the season. It was just not too long ago, I want to remind you, where Jared Allen wasn't even allowed to close out games on his own team because he just wasn't able to be impactful enough. And some of that is because they didn't have Darius Garland, and we love Donovan Mitchell. He's one of the best however many players in the league. We know Dono can pass, but he's a go get a bucket type of guy, while James is a guy that can empower Jared Allen to take that 12-foot jump shot and hit it, and to crash the offensive glass, to do this and do that. So they're on this streak with only having Evan Mobley play one of the games since James got here. So I'm all in on the Cavs, by the way, in this little bit of sample size, but we also have seen multiple times in James Harden's career where he gets traded to a new team, and that first month is like bliss. This team will not lose. They cannot lose. They're going to win the conference. And then month 2 comes around and they just come back down to earth. It doesn't mean that they're bad all of a sudden, but they aren't the team that just won 8 straight games. And James Harden may not be, because I think right now, the first however many games versus the Clippers, one of the biggest things that I even made a video about it, James Harden's defensive effort was crazy. And he hasn't been a high effort defensive player in quite some time. Good hands, big body, so you can't really post him up. Teams ain't trying to hunt him because he is kind of sturdy. But there are so many times in the first, let's say 30 games of the Clippers where James just did not give a damn about getting a stop defensively. And so far, since he transitioned over to the Cavs, I think their defensive rating with his Donovan Mitchell and our guy James Harden's like a 128, which is nuts, by the way. It's like the worst in the league. he has, especially in those last like 6 or so minutes in every single game, been able to like, hey, here's a stop. Hey, here's a block. Hey, here's a swipe down steal, which is something James Harden's been able to do for 30 years, it feels like. So I'm just excited about this team. I'm all in. I don't know if I'm saying they're my favorite to win. I think I'm still Pistons right now, but damn, it is very, very close.
Hit subscribe for more news, highlights, and analysis from the NBA on NBC.